Okay, we have to begin today's session by giving a shout out to Eliyahu Muller, a recent subscriber of the Torah that we're learning over here on the channel, and we had to give him a shout out. That's what I said. So there's the shout out. Okay, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be summarizing the entire siman Reishnun that we have spent. If I'm not mistaken, now it's 23 sessions, and we got the proof. It's all recorded. 23 sessions. And around a half an hour, 35 minutes each session. We're going to try to condense it all in, in 2 sessions, the past 23 sessions. All right. This obviously does not have all of the detail, but this is what I typed up from what we did, around the 100 footnotes, 13 pages, with also some additions, but it's certainly not everything. So this is going to try to summarize everything that we learned and all the very relevant and applicable halachas that we discussed pertaining to preparations of Shabbos. Excuse me. That's what we're going to try to do. So first we begin with personal involvement. Does one personally need to be involved with the preparations of Shabbos or not, and why? So the Torah relates that even someone who has many servants should strive to personally prepare something for Shabbos in order to honor it. In other words, a person could be sitting in a $10 million plus house. He has 10 servants that he has, butlers, etc. And still he should do something. Many Amoraim personally prepared for Shabbos. We know this from the Gemara in Masechet Shabbos on Kuf Yud Tes Amud Aleph. That there were around 5 or 10 Amoraim over there that were listed that were personally involved with the preparations of Shabbos. We should fix the entire house for Shabbos by removing all of the weekday items and set up all of the Shabbos items. In other words, that what? The idea over here is that we should get all of the weekday out and get all of the Shabbos in. Lavush writes that we would certainly prepare our house properly if someone important would come to our house. This certainly applies to Shabbos. In other words, the idea over here is that what? Is that we have to realize that on Shabbos, the King of all kings is coming. And just like if a very important person would be coming at our house, a Rosh Hashiva, a Melech, etc., we would be very careful to prepare the house carefully. So then so too over here as well. That what? That the King of all kings is arriving, and or Queen Shabbos Malchus, Shabbos Queen, and therefore the house has to be prepared properly. That is the idea. Now the Rambam writes that even an important person who typically doesn't buy anything from the marketplace and isn't involved with any household chores is obligated to be involved with Shabbos preparations. That's the Rambam in Hilchos Shabbos, Perek Lamed, Halacha Vav. So this is talking about someone, we could call him a busy, important person, and he isn't involved with any chores. Still, he should do something. So everyone should do something for Shabbos. Or Shulchan points out that the Rambam uses a language of obligated as opposed to the Torah and Shulchan Aruch, who use the term strive, that a person should strive to to be involved with the preparations of Shabbos. That's what the Torah and Shulchan Aruch say. Hishtadel, Gishtadel. Even so, according to Aruch HaShulchan, the Rambam doesn't hold that it is a full-fledged obligation to be personally involved with Shabbos preparations. Rather, Rambam holds that personally preparing for Shabbos is a hider mitzvah. Okay, so we have a discussion on the technicalities of how serious is this mitzvah. Is this mitzvah a full-fledged obligation, or is it nice but not necessary, but a person should strive to do it? Regarding us, says the Aruch HaShulchan, our wives prepare Shabbos, and thus we can apply the halachic principle of ishto kegufo. The Aruch HaShulchan over here has a fascinating leniency and says that no, if one wife prepares for Shabbos, it's considered as if the husband prepared for Shabbos as well and would be completely off the hook and doesn't need to prepare. This psak or ruling of the Aruch HaShulchan is surprising because the Gemara relates that these great Amoraim were personally involved with the Shabbos preparations. They didn't rely on their wives performing the Shabbos preparations on their behalf. Exactly. What did the Gemara say? The Gemara said that there were around 10 Amoraim who were personally, 10 big rabbis who were personally involved, rabbis from the time of the Gemara who were involved with the preparations of Shabbos personally. Did they rely on their wives? No. They were involved with the Shabbos preparations themselves. They didn't rely on their wives. So we clearly see that what? That this ruling of the Aruch HaShulchan is tremendously questionable and, controversial. They certainly didn't waste any time and stop learning for non-essential reasons. Even so, they stopped learning in order to personally prepare for Shabbos. Thus, it had important significance in their eyes. If they did so, then we certainly should do so as well. In other words, we see that this idea of the Aruch HaShulchan is incredibly questionable. They didn't waste any time, these rabbis, and still we see that they stopped learning in order to be involved with what? The preparations of Shabbos. So we clearly see that what? That the preparations of Shabbos are actually very important. After I thought of this question, I was pleased to see that I wasn't the only person bothered by this. Of Yisrael Harfinis, Nishailos and Chuvas Nishma Shabbos, siman Kuf Chav Dalid, says this as well. All the rabbis in the Gemara had wives. Similarly, Shulchan Aruch is certainly referring to people with wives. Even so, it is better to be personally involved with the Shabbos preparations because mitzvah bo yoyser mibishlucha. Now, that itself we're going to come back to. It's better to be personally involved with the Shabbos preparations because of mitzvah bo yoyser mibishlucha, because someone who is personally involved with the mitzvah, with his body, will receive more reward. That is the idea. So the idea from over here is that no, they had wives, but it could be, explains Rav Harfinis, the reason why they themselves were involved was because it's better to perform a mitzvah rather than have a messenger perform the mitzvah on your behalf. Now, the truth is, we already discussed this when we learned the Meyeros. See, I think Dirshu and Meyeros, I think it was part 22, if I'm not mistaken. The point is that, I could check right now what part it was. But the point is that what? This is in itself a discussion if this is a full-fledged obligation or if it was it's preferable to do it because the mitzvah will yosim b'shlucha. So that's the discussion that we learned in the past, right? Rav Harfinis then says a crucial side point. Oh, I have it right here. It's gonna be, part 22. Dirshu and Meyeros, part 22. We discussed that when we learned the Meyeros about that. Rav Harfinis then says a crucial side point. Someone married is obligated to help out in the house, even not on Erev Shabbos. Now, this is really talking about if someone doesn't have help in the house and stuff needs to get done. All the obligations aren't necessarily on the wife, 100% not. They're actually only certain specific items and tasks that a wife would be obligated to do. So this is especially applies to someone who has children, excuse me, regarding helping out. Anyways, similarly, Piskei Chuvas relates that someone who knows that they will not be able to complete all of the preparations of Shabbos properly, for example, in the winter where Shabbos begins early, or a family with a lot of kids, is completely obligated to help out with all of his strength. With all of his strength. Look at that language. even an important person in this case needs to help out. And even if because of this, you won't be able to learn Torah. So we see the importance of helping out. Okay, that's the Piskei Teshuvos in footnote 15. Any questions? Moving right along. Magen Avram relates that regarding every mitzvah, it is better to perform the mitzvah by oneself rather than appoint a messenger to perform the mitzvah on your behalf. Better do it yourself. In other words, even though shlucho shel adam kemoso, which means that if we appoint a messenger to perform a mitzvah, it's as if we ourselves did it. Nevertheless, mitzvah bo yosim b'shlucho. It is better to perform the mitzvah ourselves rather than have someone else perform the mitzvah on our behalf. Even though it is considered as if you perform the mitzvah yourself when you appoint a messenger, nevertheless, it's better to perform the mitzvah yourself. That's what we just saw. However, according to the Shulchan Aruch Haraf, this is in the Kunshus Achron in our siman Sivkot base. One must personally be involved with the preparations of Shabbos Me'ikar Adin according to the letter of the law. It is a full-fledged obligation that one must personally perform with its own body. Comes the Shulchan Aruch Harav and explains that no, you have to perform the mitzvah with your own body. That's why the rabbis and the Gemara stopped learning in order to perform the mitzvah. We're going to come back to that. I think we're going to. No, we're not going to. So I'm going to speak it out now. Even though if you could perform a mitzvah, even though if there's a option, well, first, before that, it is an obligation that one must personally do with his own body. This is similar to tefillin and sitting in a sukkah. One must only perform one act in honor of Shabbos. In other words, this is the cake, not merely the cherry on the cake, see mayoros. In other words, what this is saying over here is like this. It's like, if a person could sit and learn Torah, or if they should be involved with, or they can perform another mitzvah, which someone else anyways will be performing, the other mitzvah. So in the halacha is what?
Better for you to do it yourself.
Better for you to sit and learn.
Okay, fine.
Right? Because someone else could perform the mitzvah.
Right.
Someone else could perform the mitzvah, right? That's what we learn. So Gemara Mo'i Katan Daf Tes, it's the Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah, that's the Torah Shulchan Aruch, and Reish Mem Vav in Yordeya. Fine, it's brought that. Other places also. Yeah? What's the reason for that halacha, by the way?
Why is it better for you to learn?
Why is it better to learn?
Because since somebody else can do it, so they
Correct.
can be involved in Torah.
Yeah, why? Why is Torah better?
We know Torah is better because
Torah, Talmud Torah can kulam. So one explanation is every single word of Torah is a mitzvah d'oraisa, positive mitzvah from the Torah. So when a person in 1 minute could say 200 words of Torah, learn 200 words, that's much more than that one mitzvah that a person is doing. That's one explanation as to the chashivas Torah. This guy knows he's sitting and steiging here. So therefore, that's the explanation as to why.
What about if you learn slowly?
If you learn slowly, okay, that yesh ladun over there, that's already lafum saragros. You're gonna get reward like the end of Pirkei Avos in the 5th parak. According to how difficult it is for you to learn Torah, do mitzvahs, in accordance to that will be your reward. So you'll get rewarded.
Says also every letter. Somebody says
every word.
Somebody says
every word. It's the Vilna Gaon in the introduction to the Shnos Eliyahu. It's commentary of Maseches Peah and the Yerushalmi. It's poured all over the place. Included by the Chafetz Chaim in its Hagdama, included in the Torah. I mean, it's all over the place. It's fine that every single word of Torah is a mitzvah saseh word. Yeah. The idea over here is that what? Let's get back to what we're dealing with, which is, so you have to be personally involved. But why? You should sit and learn Torah. No. So according to this, the idea is that what? You have to be personally involved. Therefore, you wouldn't learn Torah. Because this is similar to tefillin. Because it's not a mitzvah she'efshar la'asos alidei acherim. Other people can't do it. It's a mitzvah she'efshar la'asos alidei acherim. This past Erev Shabbos, we learned the mayor owes, and that's, I just want to talk out, not the answers necessarily, but just the questions. He asked, A very strong question. The Gemara in Kedushin in the beginning of the second parak on Mem Aleph Amud Aleph related Rav and Rav Safra that they were involved with preparation of Shabbos, and this is a source of mitzvah Bo Yosem Shlucho, and it could be inferred from there Shlucho Shaldim Kemosa, which means it's learned out from the rabbis who were involved with the preparation of Shabbos that if we appoint a messenger, it's as if we ourselves did it, right? Question is, wait, how could you appoint a messenger according to this explanation? According to the implication of the Rambam, the Seder Hayom, and the Shulchan Aruch Harav, that no, only a person himself has to be personally involved with it. If a person has to be personally involved with it, then comes out that what? He can't appoint a messenger. How then is the Gemara learning that you could appoint a messenger? So we saw two answers. He didn't even like the first answer, and this is on the Mayro's video that we did. Okay, part 22, and we discussed that answer and said reasons why it doesn't work. And then the second answer, he went into a potential other answer. The question is better than the answer. It's the real big question over here on the sugya, with which if anyone tries to answer, it could really be refuted because it's a very strong question. Anyways, he basically said in the second answer, like it's a model mitzvah, and he went into other things of, because really the preparation of Shabbos, it's the idea that they just need to get done. Not that you need to do it, but he goes into a whole thing, but it's the whole thing's questionable. Anyways, Shulchan Aruch Harav continues and writes that it is enough to prepare one item for Shabbos, as we just saw. Preparing one item is enough of a demonstration that he is honoring Shabbos. However, Rambam relates that anyone who increases his preparations for Shabbos is praiseworthy. So this is the Rambam in Hilchos Shabbos, Perek Lamed Halacha Vav. So we see that one technically covers the basic obligation, but better to be involved with more preparation. Shlah also says this as well. Okay, so if you want to look up the Shlah in their mitzvahs gimel, Pella Yoyitz in Erech Hachana relates that one of the Gedolim would do everything himself. Peliyowitz explains that he did this because he would learn Torah while he walked and prepared for Shabbos, or because he was so attached to Hashem and loved and feared Hashem. Conversely, we are considered the orphans of orphans, like the Gemara says, and if we have servants, they should be involved with all the preparations of Shabbos. We should learn Torah and only be involved with one preparatory act for Shabbos.
This gets a special portion.
I'm going to point something out over here.
It's
He opened up with this interesting statement. The Peliyotz said he would learn Torah while he walked and prepared for Shabbos. The truth is that the Mayros himself already went into this lumdus, and it's still a bittul Torah, even if you are able to learn Torah and review mentally what you learned recently or some Torah in your mind while you're involved with the preparations of Shabbos. That's a bittul Torah bi'ichos. It's a qualitative nullification of Torah, because qualitatively your Torah learning isn't as good as if you were learning in depth and with the Sefer open, etc. And we know this from the Gemara and Megillah and Daf Gimel. Mevatlin Talmud Torah l'shmo Megillah. We're mevatel Torah. We stop learning Torah in order to listen to the Megillah. One explanation is it's a bittul Torah qualitatively. For sure, the Megillah is still Torah, but it's a qualitative bittul Torah, just reading psukim. Person could have been learning the Megillah properly. With the Esther Rabbah opened up, with the end of the first parak of Maseches Megillah, learning the Agadita, the Mefarshim on the Agadita, looking at all the Mefarshim on the Megillah, just learning the psukim, that's a bittul Torah. If a person is at the level to learn it more in depth, of course. Which probably most people are. Everyone could open up a Moam Loez in their language. Come on. Now, Prima Godim writes that it is enough, this day Ishal Avram, actually not in our siman, and it looks like it's in Hilchos Pesach, and siman Tuf Lamed Beis Sifkat and Hey. It's enough to perform part of a mitzvah to be considered mitzvah by Yosem Yeshulcha. That is a massive chiddush and discussion of itself. If a person is partially involved with the mitzvah, it's considered as if he did the mitzvah. Because maybe the mitzvah is not considered your mitzvah, Ela Nikra Shem Gomer, if you complete the whole thing. Anyways, the proof to this is hiring someone to perform Bedikas Chametz, which we learned about when we learned Bedikas Chametz, the Gemara Psachim, Daf Dalet Amud Beis. Since he checked for some of the Chametz himself, he can hire someone else to check the rest of the Chametz. Footnote 12, that is C. Mishnah Brew and Siman Tov Lamed Beis Os Ches. Now, Morva Oilos argues and holds that when someone pays someone else to do something, it is considered as if the employer did the task himself. Which is interesting. More and holds that when someone pays someone else to do something, it is considered as if the employer did the task himself. The hand of the employee is like the hand of the employer. So how is that arguing? According to the Prima Gadim, he's saying it's enough if you do part of a mitzvah to be considered mitzvah bo. This is saying no. Morval is saying no, you don't even need to do part of the mitzvah. Even if you fully appoint someone else, if you're paying him, if there's money involved, it's considered as if you do the whole thing. You don't even need to do any of the mitzvah. The hand of the employee is like the hand of the employer. Now, even so, regarding Shabbos and Kiddush, even someone who pays someone else should still perform the mitzvah himself. An important person should at least do some of the mitzvah himself. Whereas a simple person should l'chachila perform the entire mitzvah himself. If he has an extenuating circumstance, then he should appoint someone else to perform the mitzvah. That's the subtle machlokes there. The argument between them.
Wait, so that means that any mitzvah you do at work is potentially your employer's?
No, any mitzvah that you were paid to do, according to the Morva Oilos, is considered as if he did it.
Well, let's say you're on your employer's, you're on the clock.
Yeah. In other words, if you donate a couple $1,000 to a kollel, it's considered as if you learned.
But let's say you say Asher Yatzer at work.
No, because you're not getting paid to say the Asher Yatzer.
That time
You need to go to the bathroom in order to work.
No, but your employer's paying you for that time.
I understand. No, not every single mitzvah that you're doing at work is the employer's.
Why not?
Because you're not getting paid to go to the bathroom. The bathroom,
You are getting
is only a means to an end to get you to work.
The employer doesn't own you.
The employer doesn't own you. He doesn't own your urine.
So at what point does it become his?
What you're getting paid to do, your employer will get rewarded for that. So for example, let's say you have a guy and he is getting paid to write tefillin by someone else. He's working, he's a sofer who's working under a main sofer. So that sofer who's writing, the main sofer who's employing him will get some of that reward. That's what that means. Yeah, good. Practically. Right? A dentist, right? My brother-in-law, he has another dentist working under him who he pays. So when that other dentist gets the mitzvah of fixing someone's pain from their cavity, my brother-in-law also gets some of that reward.
So they both get a chelik of
They both get a chelik, exactly.
Not like he doesn't get anything.
Exactly.
David, you still get your mitzvahs.
You get your mitzvahs, don't worry. Keep the
Does
time.
he get a portion? Is he getting a portion of it or what?
Yeah. A portion of the mitzvahs that you're doing. So whatever you're doing over there, whatever chidushim you're doing, if it's helping someone else, then it's considered a mitzvah in some way.
So that is learning now.
What?
But I'm asking about.
So you're learning right now from the fact that your employer is for some reason paying you to work and be able to listen to a shiur at the same time. So since your employer is okay with it, he would get some of the reward, according to the Morva Oilos.
And what about? Why not Asher Yatzer though? What's the
Because you're not getting paid to go to the bathroom. If it was up to any employer, they would say work 10 hours straight and don't eat and don't go to the bathroom. It's just that you need to eat in order that you have energy, and you need to go to the bathroom in order that you don't explode in your pants. But you wouldn't be able to work then. You understand? All right. Nishma Shabbos. And Chelik, the Shabbos Truth Nishma Shabbos. This is hilarious stuff here. All right. Shabbos Truth Nishma Shabbos. Chelik Aleph Siman Kovchav Beis explains that a husband only needs to perform one preparatory act for Shabbos if the rest of the preparations will be completed without him. However, it is obvious that if the other preparations will not be completed without his help, he must stop learning even to help with additional preparations. So the truth is, this could get cutted and pasted to back over here when we were talking about helping in the house before. Where was that? Yeah, right before the crucial side point. Not be able to complete all the tasks, we get blah blah blah, even to the person because he won't be able to learn, right? This will go right over here. This is kind of repetitious. Okay. Questions, comments regarding Shabbos preparations personally or with the messenger? Okay, moving right on to the next section. What is the best preparation to be involved with? The answer is Shiloh Shuvas Nishma Shabbos. Harfness yet again in siman kuf chof vov says that one should be involved with his favorite food preparation, meaning if he likes meat, then he should be involved with meat, etc. You got the point. Okay. Remember, this is a summary. Does a bachor need to be involved with Shabbos preparations? After all, everything's ready for him. He's in the yeshiva. They have a kitchen there. He's at home. His mother's doing everything. He doesn't need to. Charles and Chuvas Nishma Shabbos yet again discusses this in siman kuf chav zayin. Rules that a bachor should still assist at least a little with Shabbos preparations. Mothers should leave some of the Shabbos preparations for their children to be involved with. Excuse me. One should also educate his children to do so. Someone who is eating out for Shabbos could buy something, for example, dessert for Shabbos. B'diavad. That means after the fact, post facto. It's not preferable, but if a husband prepares the Shabbos Neirus and his wife lights them, they would fulfill their obligation of preparing for Shabbos. Piskei Teshuvos, that's a massive chiddush to be lenient with. And Oz Gimel relates that a bachor, a boy who's not married, or a guest, or someone who is staying at a hotel is still obligated in the mitzvah of preparing for Shabbos. Someone in this situation should buy special food for Shabbos and prepare the room he will be staying in somehow. In other words, everyone could do something for Shabbos. Buy something special. Fix your room up, tidy up a little bit. Do something for Shabbos. If you're the type of guy who's a little messy, make sure everything's clean before Shabbos. What's the story with knife sharpening over here? Answer is, Ramah says that one should sharpen his knife Erev Shabbos. Beis Yosef quotes the Kolbo on this halacha. Oz v'Hadar Mishnah Brew explains, this means that we must fix and prepare all utensils that we will be eating with on Shabbos. Every utensil we have to fix, make sure it's ready. Ben Ishchai and Shana Beis and Lechacha Os. Hey says that the custom in most places is to use a knife during a meal for bread or meat. Even in places where they don't need a knife, nevertheless, since the rabbi said to use one and base this on a pasuk, we need to be careful to have knives at our table. The Korban Shabbos, Perek, Aleph, Siman, Zion says the reason for knife sharpening is Kabbalistic. The Nishma Shabbos, here we go again, Rav Harfness in Siman Kuf Lamed Beis discusses why we don't have the custom to sharpen our knives. Ramah quotes the Kolbo who says that there's a custom to sharpen knives in honor of Shabbos and its preparations. However, Rokeach writes that the reason for this is shalom bayis. If the blade will be dull, then it won't cut properly. This might lead to a lack of shalom bayis. Only bolding what's applicable. This is more reasoning than practical and applicable. After a knife is used many times, its blade becomes dull and it doesn't cut properly. This could cause a delay during the Suda and sorrow. Therefore, one should sharpen the blade every Erev Shabbos in order that the blade will be sharp and cut properly. According to the Rokeach, one could use a serrated knife. Even after many years, one doesn't need to sharpen a serrated knife. One doesn't need to buy a non-serrated knife in order to sharpen it. However, the reasoning of the Kolbo would still apply. Perhaps setting the silverware at the table would suffice, even according to the kolba. Lakute Maharich doesn't want people using serrated knives because they cause crumbs, which are bad for poverty. What do you think of? Rav Harfina says that it is difficult to understand this reason because only directly stepping on crumbs is a problem, which could lead to poverty. Furthermore, some tzaddikim say that there's a concept of having crumbs from challah on Shabbos. Perhaps lichatchila, which means preferably it's prohibited to cause crumbs from challah for no reason. This could be violating Baal Tashchis, which means wasting, even if the crumbs are less than a kezayis, they're smaller, less than the size of the olive. See, for Korban Shabbos writes that for Kabbalistic reasons it isn't fitting to use a serrated knife on Shabbos. Otzer halachos, in footnote 22, relates that nowadays everyone has a designated knife for Shabbos to cut through chalos that isn't used during the week. Since its sharpness remains for a long amount of time, one doesn't need to sharpen it every single week. So that is the discussion with the knives and why many people have never heard of this and why we're not necessarily careful. Our knives are already sharp. My wife tells me that it's actually very easy to sharpen a knife. I didn't know that. I said last time it's just easier to buy a new knife than sharpen it. Apparently it's easy. You just need a special type of little rock and it takes a couple seconds, whatever. All right, whatever. Anyways, so Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow we're gonna go into when should one buy Shabbos food.
Shkoyach.
Everyone have a wonderful day. Bruchim to you. You might need 2 more sessions than this. I don't want to rush it. Yeah, yesterday. No, yesterday. Then we went back to it was just to the beginning of yeah, we finished it.